RET Ventures, we're a strategic fund, as you know, which that means we have a consortium of about 50, 55 LPs in the group, mainly institutional. That's the public REITs, UDR, Essex, some of the larger operators, BH, Greystar, et cetera. In aggregate, I quote this, it's directionally correct, but 2 to 3 out of every institutionally owned apartment, 20 to 30% out of every institutionally owned apartment is somebody in our group, right? So if you go into a random city and you pick a building, there's a 30% chance that you're in an RET Ventures LP.
That's impressive.
So it's nice scale. I think the value, the whole impetus of the fund was you have a consortium of these industry players, right? Why do they come to OpTech? They're trying to expand their technology initiatives, expand their technology capabilities. And they were doing that in silos. They approached, our founder, John Helm, and said, hey, we're spending a lot of time here doing the same thing, spinning our wheels on the same topics. Like, can we kind of work together to, rising tide lifts all boats type mindset. So can we all help each other out with our insights? So that was the impetus for the fund. And then myself, I'm a vice president on the team. I spend probably 50% of my time talking to the LPs, identifying pain points, what they're focused on, where they're, where they're spending the next 12 months in terms of technology, who they're working with, right? Are there exciting startups in the space? And then the other half of my time is working with our portfolio companies, Revise being one of them, and, helping them, whether it's a go-to-market strategy, whether it's just financials, et cetera, a typical kind of VC role in that regard. It's not too bad.
Jameson, you've got to have one of the most informed perspectives in our industry, really on like what's on the immediate term roadmap, but also like where is this industry going, right? Like to be able to have an ear with somewhere between 2 or 3 million units is very rare in our space. So tell us about what you're hearing thematically. What's next?
It's tough. I mean, one, it's great because I get all different angles. It's unique because one thing I didn't think about in the space is that every owner operator is different in terms of their strategy, right? You have asset managers, different technology needs. You have vertically integrated owner operators, different technology needs. So that was one thing that early on didn't necessarily click as well in my career. I assume, for you as being kind of veteran as well, like for vendors looking out and saying, like, how am I going to address, what people are looking for? What is the future crystal ball? I think you have to, just say, well, who's my customer? Is it a vertically integrated owner operator? Is it an asset manager, et cetera? So they all kind of have different. So I'll preface my answer that it doesn't mean like this is a one size fits all type viewpoint. But in general, I think more thematically, it's a bit of a, what do you want to call it? Like self-promoting, right? Like we have our company funnel, which has been very focused on centralization, the forefront of that. I think that's probably the number one kind of buzzword I hear every time I have a call with one of the LPs is, hey, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? It's unique though because it's not so much like a technology, right? There's not a centralization module that you can just plop in and say, oh yeah, we're using Yardi, but now we're centralization with Yardi, right? It's like a mindset, which then makes it a little bit more obscure, where I think a lot of the LPs are starting to monitor and observe their processes and say, okay, where then can we pull in this mindset, this theme of centralization? So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to rip and replace with new technology. It just, hey, we have this process. Can we cut out some steps? Can we centralize the location, right? And maybe a technology will come in and help us do that. A company like Funnel, a company like Revise, right, et cetera. So that's probably the number one focus that I'm hearing today. It's an interesting thing. Like, I think 2, 3, 4 years ago, when you talk to these LPs, you would hear it was like point solution back then, right? Hey, we're looking for a chatbot. We're looking for an Elise AI, right? Hey, we're looking for a parking solution, et cetera, revenue management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? All these kind of, they can plug in the module and it solves their problem. That's not what we're hearing today, right? There's very limited modules. It is a lot of these thematic initiatives, centralization, et cetera, data. I think data and AI, those are probably the other two, which again, very obscure. AI, even more obscure because it's like, well, what does this mean? How do I monitor? Like, where can I plug it in? So that, I think people are interested in it, but they're still not quite sure how to use it.
So you touched on two of the hardest topics, right? Centralization and AI for the last probably 2 years.
Yeah.
Centralization means a lot of things to a lot of people. There's front office, there's CRM and all the operational change that comes with like touching the resident. There's also maintenance and some other areas within that. Let's dig into AI. Like, where are you starting to see some like really cool applications for AI? I think initially it started more on that leasing side, and I feel like that's been a little bit maybe more commoditized now. What else are you seeing or hearing frequently that are problems being solved with AI?
Yeah, so I agree with that sentiment, right? It's like it was probably early days on the leasing side, right, with the language models, et cetera, right? A resident chats in, what is the bot going to say? What is the leasing assessment going to say? Probably today, I think our view is RET Ventures, and I think for a lot of the LPs, right, it's tough for every company because AI can be applicable in all areas. I think where it's probably going to be the most impactful and fastest adopting will probably be any solution, any repeatable process that is not disrupting workflow, right? So you're not coming in and saying, oh, we have this new AI that your residents are going to have or your leasing staff is going to have a co-pilot where they're going to be able to launch all these different things, because then you're retraining people. I think that is probably where we'll see companies trip up. Like a good example, and again, self-promoting a bit, but we invested in a company called Predict AP. And their whole AI is, don't change any of your accounts payable processes. Send your invoice, send all of your bills to just a separate email address, have it auto forward, right? Day one, you do one change, and then it'll ingest, it'll understand, and it'll figure out your coding and use any changes you have to your coding for future coding, et cetera, and it just self-learns. So that's a pretty easy, like, no-brainer for somebody to say, great, like, it's pattern recognition, but I'm not changing the workflow. That would probably be my view on best use cases, best industries. And so you kind of go, okay, what could that look like? I think a lot of financial type outcomes, right? A lot of finance, contract management, right? All very, very consistent, what do you want to call it? Like repeatable processes without a change in the end back office user workflow, right? You just tell them, hey, click this one button, and then all of this in the background will pattern recognize and will help improve your operation. So that's where I would guess we'll see a lot of improvements and initiatives.
We're one of the things that we've seen, I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, right? This industry's gone through a ton of change recently that is softening rents, and at the same time soaring fixed costs, right? So it's a difficult time to sell into multifamily from a cost perspective. Are you seeing anything? So obviously you've got like the tech fatigue, the ease of implementation. That's like a theme or a trend that you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything else that you're looking for in terms of possibly monetizing the renter as opposed to the operator, or trying to make it as budget friendly right now for an operator, given that there's not a ton of available budgets right now?
Yeah, the sentiment is 100% correct, right? Like, operators are pulling back on things where they go, is there hard ROI? Is it very clear and tangible? Or is there soft ROI, right? Are you telling me the resident experience is going to be better? It's like, that's very tough. So I think how we look at companies nowadays is it has to be a very clear where dollars and cents are saved and or monetized on the resident, but it is repeatable, and there's a very clear demonstrable art or case study from it, right? You can say, hey, look, I can guarantee if you come in, right, we could use Revise for an example, is like, on average, every resident that adopts our solution, or every owner-operator that adopts our solution, will save 10% from redundant contracts that we can alert them on. And if I see that you've worked with 20 of my peers and on average 10% saves, it's like, great, I'll come in and underwrite that. Same thing with other companies. I see it a lot in the like tech and device space. You're coming in and you're installing this sensor, and it's like, okay, well, you install a sensor and you say, oh, but it's gonna save you this, it's gonna save you that. It's like, okay, well, like, show me how and show me that it's repeatable, right? We have a company, Parity, which works in the HVAC saving space, and they come in and they guarantee the savings. So that's very easy, underwritable. Put in this device, put in this software, guaranteed savings, payback period of 2.5 years. You need to show and prove that, or have people trust that it's real.
Yep.
It can't be very fluffy in my opinion.
Jameson, you've run a couple of like surveys of the LP side.
Yep.
And there were a couple of like themes at the top of like near-term initiatives. I think we've talked about one of them, which is centralization.
Yeah, it's an easy one. Yeah.
Where are we, do you think, on the adoption life cycle of centralization?
Yeah.
And maybe let's talk about like 2 and 3 that follow behind that.
Yeah, so adoption cycle probably of centralization, I think, to your point, it's probably been buzzword for the past 1-2 years.
Yeah.
And so I think what we'll start to see is these early adopters, they're starting to kind of come out of the woods of, hey, what is our strategy? What are we doing? What technologies are we implementing? And they'll probably have some, trips here and there and eventually probably in the next year, I think late 2025, we'll start to see kind of a more clear picture of like which strategy actually prevails, which strategy actually makes more sense in terms of savings, in terms of, technology solutions that are being implemented, et cetera.
Yep.
And then you'll probably see a very like quick mass adoption of those solutions coming in. I think everybody today is sitting back and saying, how can we better centralize? They just don't quite know yet.
Yeah.
And hopefully some leaders in the space will come out, in the next year and a half, is my kind of view personally.
I think you're right. I think we're yet to still fully get to the early majority.
Yeah.
Although there's a huge amount of research that started going into it. But I think they're yet to like enter into their technology buying stage. So two and 3. Yeah, what's behind it?
Yeah, so it's interesting because centralization takes up a lot.
Yeah.
That is like, I can't remember, we did a survey, right? And I think it was like list your initiatives. Everyone kind of lists it and we aggregate it. And centralization's up here and you got, kind of close. And then it was like list your top 2 initiatives. And centralization and then like, a couple over here. So centralization is taking the lead for sure. I would probably, I think, say close by, which is also thematic, is this resident experience mindset. It's just, we're still not quite there to the one app to rule them all. But I think everyone wants this seamless brand, seamless move-in, seamless et cetera, right? Like, you come to a Marriott and you use your Marriott app, you search on the Marriott site, like you have this Marriott brand, you know what you're expecting every time. I think people want that with their communities. They want, a resident to show up at a Greystar community, use one app for the entire process, signing up for utilities, turning on their Wi-Fi, paying their rent, et cetera, requesting a cleaner. And then, hey, I'm thinking about moving. What's in my network? Oh, I can go to this other Greystar property, et cetera. So that is something that I think a lot of LPs are focused on. Again, it's more of a theme. It's less of a specific app to help them do that. And then probably the third, touched on it again already, is just AI, right? Everyone knows they should be thinking about it. I just think centralization is taking up the bandwidth over here. And AI is kind of in the back as they're kind of sitting and pondering it a little bit less.
Are you starting to see, I think there's like a precursor to AI proper, which is data cleanliness.
Yeah.
Are you starting to see this, some of the maybe more big tech, like the snowflakes or others come into our space, or like the foundation being laid for future state AI applications? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, like we talk about it, right? You have like horizontal and vertical technologies. I think you're starting to see more horizontal technologies come into the multifamily space, to your point, to enhance the data cleanliness, to enhance just like the data fidelity, if you will. So that's been a focus. Probably, I think data and centralization kind of both maybe like 2020, 2021 started coming up a lot, right? People were thinking, hey, BI, what should I be doing? What should I not be doing? So I think it's definitely creating this foundation, if you will, where we're going to have great solutions that come after it and utilize that cleanliness, utilize that infrastructure. The one probably hiccup, which personally, I think the industry still needs to figure out and resolve, is this integration layer, like every company playing friendly, right? It's like, it doesn't, if you have the data, that's great. But if this data is not communicating with that data, it's very problematic. And so you could have these horizontal solutions, build these amazing data lakes, it's all clean, and you want to plug in XYZ solution to take advantage of that. But if it's not communicating with other core infrastructure at your company, you're going to have issues. So I think that's one thing where the industry needs to honestly evolve a little bit better, is to create this more seamless integration layer for all of the players, right? And whether, it could, this is a little bit, I don't know if it's on your roadmap, but like contract management can kind of be a place, right, where you know all of the players, you know how they're integrated, so then you can say, hey, look, there's, this vendor is working with these 400 operators, and this vendor is also working with those 400 operators.
Yep.
They have great overlap. Like, we should try and enhance the seamless exchange of information.
We talk a fair bit about the opportunities that will arise from the data that we're sitting on.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's certainly one that we've discussed. So, Jameson, thank you for spending some time with us. You have your finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
It was really fun sharing some thoughts with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.